Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Future in Review podcast. I'm Barrett Anderson, the COO of Future in Review. And for those of you who have never heard of us before, we run the annual FIRE conference, which The Economist has called the best technology conference in the world. We are back this year in person for the first time since the pandemic. That will be November 6th through 9th, 2023, at the Terranea Resort in Rancho Palos Verdes, California. It will be beautiful, it will be mind-bending, and it will be a fantastic place to form new connections, develop new partnerships. We really hope you'll join us there. Now, the other arm of our business, Strategic News Service, provides its subscribers with the most accurate source of information about the future of technology and the global economy. If you enjoy these updates, we hope that you will sign up for the Strategic News Service Global Report using the link below. Now, today we're going to be switching things around a little bit, and I am actually going to be interviewed by Evan Anderson, who, in addition to playing the very important role of my brother, many of you will have noticed that this is a family company, is also the CEO of Invent IP, which is an initiative that we started focused on fighting nation-sponsored intellectual property theft, and as well as being an analyst himself for the Global Report. So you'll see that we're going to be talking today about TikTok, which has a lot of overlap with the Invent IP mission, and was the subject of my latest global report, which was called TikTok, the End is Nigh, or something like that.
Yeah, an overlap meaning not that our interests overlap, but that they come up in conversation often, right? So Barrett, this week you wrote about TikTok, which was an interesting topic to do. I think probably given 15 other things in the news cycle right now. But you did something that we do specifically and usually out of great confidence, which is that you made a prediction. And you said essentially that in the next few months, something would change. I mean, I think for anybody who hasn't been paying attention, there's been a lot of talk about doing something about TikTok in the United States, given its status and its parent company ByteDance's status as a potential national security issue, now downloaded into people's phones. And so you said that you thought in the next few months we would actually do something more serious to stop usage of TikTok in the United States. Is that right? Did I get that right?
Yes, I think in the next 3 months, the federal government, in some combination, will do something to severely limit ByteDance, either remove them from the app stores or to block their financial ability to make financial transactions in the United States, essentially kind of putting them out of business here.
Yeah, and this is in contrast, just for anyone listening, to the government already restricted the use on government devices. So if you're a U.S. government employee, you can't. But Barrett's talking about the consumer markets here. What made you think that that was going to happen now? Why now?
Well, so there are a couple of things going on globally that have brought us to the point as a country, and I think has brought the government, both Congress and the federal administration, to the point where it is no longer deniable the potential for TikTok as a source of influence in the upcoming US election, or the ability and desire and ability of China to execute on influence in foreign elections. So historically, we've for a long time been worried about Russia's influence in elections. This is something that I've written about extensively, around misinformation and information warfare. But over the last couple of months, I think it's become very clear to more and more people that, number one, anything that Russia is doing internationally should be considered a part of China's strategy globally, even if they're not themselves doing it, right? So the invasion of Ukraine, there's a reason that China has not come out aggressively against it, or even unaggressively against it, right? And there's a reason that the United States has been so strong with China about, by the way, you can't give Russia any weapons. Meanwhile, the two countries are working in partnership with Iran and North Korea to transfer intellectual property, weapons, uranium, testing, energy, information, intelligence, and they're working in concert as part of a larger partnership to undermine Western democracy. So in the last month, really, we've seen this accelerate, and we've seen China become a lot more aggressive as a part of this partnership, right? So as early as the 2022 election, as early as the 2022 Olympics, China and Russia released a statement in partnership saying, we are together, we are working together, nothing anyone does essentially can undermine that. No matter what happens in other countries, we will always be working together.
Mhm. A
Fast
friendship
forward,
statement, as it were.
right? Some US politicians use CNN to launch things. China chooses to host the Olympics and use that as a platform for their major international campaign. But we've seen that kind of alliance and the acceleration of China and Russia working together against the West, and particularly against the US, accelerate in the last couple of months. So we watched, a couple of, we had the Chinese spy balloon, which I think was really kind of a test of an incursion into potential US airspace. How far can we get? We saw 6 Russian jets intercepted by NORAD over US airspace, or we saw, a couple of other things happening. And then over not this last weekend, but the weekend before, North Korea actually tested a nuclear weapon or nuclear missile that landed in Japanese waters, and was said by Japanese officials to have been able to easily reach pretty much any part of the US.
Sure, yeah.
So at the
And
same
you have all
time,
these things happening simultaneously,
right?
I think is your point.
And then within the UN Security Council, a move to immediately after that happened, the Monday after that happened on a Saturday. On a Monday, the UN Security Council had an emergency meeting to address this. There was an initiative to kind of sanction North Korea, push back on North Korea. Both Russia and China moved to block and veto that as permanent members of the UN Security Council. So we're in a position now where we're seeing an accelerating pattern of aggression, an accelerating coordination between those 4 countries, and the inability of the United Nations to do anything about it. They're essentially neutered by the fact that both Russia and China are permanent members of the Security Council. Now, at the same time, there was Canadian intelligence released a report 2 weeks ago that detailed
election
Chinese kind of incursion and influence into the last Canadian election. And it detailed the ways that they essentially funded campaign volunteers for specific candidates who were more likely to be pro-China. Trudeau, his party was supported through these initiatives. He has denied that they had any impact, but the Chinese, I'm sorry, I keep misstating this. Canadian intelligence is pretty clear that there was some illegal activity that took place, including illegal funding of Canadian candidates through Chinese intelligence networks.
Yeah. So they're becoming extremely active. I want to jump here quickly. I think you did a good job just now synopsizing all the different reasons that people might be concerned about the intentions, right, of the PRC government,
right,
and of what we always call at SNS the CRINC alliance, which is an informal, sometimes more formal, sometimes less alliance that I think is now pretty much hard to argue with, exists between Iran, North Korea, China, and Russia. What about TikTok is so threatening? Like, talk about that a little bit, because I think a lot of people that I've talked to, and I tell people the same thing, right? I'm like, don't download TikTok on your phone. Come on. But people go, well, what do I have that matters? Why would it matter if,
right.
So tell us about
one of the mistakes that the US government has made in the past in thinking about TikTok is that they have made the point of concern around surveillance instead of influence. So TikTok is an app that you download to your phone. Clearly, it has the ability to become an always-on microphone in anyone's home in the United States, right? And it's kind of, because it's targeted at youth and it's so widely adopted within the youth community, maybe a little less sensitivity to privacy, less likely that that your child will download that in your home if you are working on something, secure or of interest to China. And therefore, you may not even know that possible avenue is in your home for surveillance. But if we have learned anything from watching the manipulation of US culture during the pandemic, during the last election cycle, the focus on political polarity, the attempts by Russia to influence people's voting behaviors, and the coordinated effects of that. We had during the 2016 election a situation where Russia was able to organize protests on both sides.
Yeah.
In real, like in Florida, they organized one side of the protests, and then they coordinated the
And
other
they
side.
bring the people to fight them. Yeah.
And then they so
And
so
so
this is
chaos, which is the
right.
mission, right? Yeah.
And I think especially within the United States, TikTok is really important because it has such a huge population of US users who are youth. In the last election, the midterm election, guess who was the deciding factor between Democrats and Republicans? It was the youth vote, which swayed primarily towards Democrats. Now, we both know that China and Russia hate the Democratic Party, especially in the United States. They have Russia has a personal vendetta against Hillary Clinton and the sanctions that were passed during the Obama administration.
Yeah, I
And
don't know where the
that's
Chinese fall. The Chinese government, I think, is just, I would say, really always looking for advantage where they can find it.
right,
Right.
right,
Yeah.
right. And if you have the ability to swing an election one way or the other, which they do, and you combine that with the fact that a huge majority of TikTok users actually use it as their main source of news, that is
Yeah,
a
that's-
huge potential for swinging a giant, in fact, the most influential voter bloc in the United States. That's just like a wide open door at the moment.
And it's because of what they can do with the app, right? I mean, like, one thing that I guess people may not understand is that it's algorithmically based, and those who control the algorithm will be able to control therefore what you see, what kinds of content
Right.
comes up for you,
Right.
etc. So that mixing with the idea that people get their actual news from it, that they think that they're learning, you know, a relatively trustworthy set of information from it. I mean, you may be, but someone's affecting how much of what you see
Right.
on what topic, in what, you know, at what time of day, in what,
And it could be that the
um,
videos you're seeing are not, intended to themselves, are not themselves propaganda, but you
right.
can affect someone's, state of mind
Yeah,
or
like if I show you only pictures of violence for 6 hours, what's your mood gonna be, right?
right.
Okay, so you're saying that the main concern there is definitely, well, I don't think you said it wasn't to do with surveillance, but rather that the biggest concern should probably be that you could influence the entire culture, or, you know, a vote or something along those lines, much more in kind of a classic information warfare way than in terms of trying to specifically use the app for surveillance.
Exactly.
Um,
And here's the other thing. So the United States has really kind of, I think, for a long time believed that China tries to be more hands-off when it comes to interfering in elections. Like they're less likely to interfere, they're less likely to get involved in that kind of a direct way. They prefer to build things economically around the world and create these kind of insidious networks that way. But for the first time, we now have direct proof that they are very willing to conduct influence campaigns in our neighbor to the north, Canada, right? And so why would that be any different in the United States,
right. Yeah.
which they consider their direct kind of foreign adversary?
Okay. So you've talked about, I think, most of the things that are critically important in your piece, but there's another piece that you talked about, which is Project Texas. Is that it?
Mhm.
So tell us about that. Why
So
is it important?
Project Texas is TikTok's. TikTok has been working for a long time. They have done a lot to try to remove the facade that they are related in any way to China, right? They hire
Or creative facade that they are not.
right.
Yeah.
Clearly, they're owned by ByteDance, a Chinese company, and they've been going through all of these machinations, if you will, to try to appear less Chinese. They want to appear like a friendly American kind of company, and that's all of their employees are working. They're all American, and therefore they're fine. But it turns out that when your ownership structure is still controlled by the CCP, that's never going to be true.
Yeah.
So part of this machination has been they've been working with the U.S. Committee on Foreign Direct Investment. I believe that's the right
Foreign
combination
investment in the United CFIUS,
Yes, exactly.
working with them.
Yeah, so they've been working on a potential solution with them, which is called Project Texas, in which they would partner with Oracle. Oracle would be responsible for reviewing their algorithm, and they would be basing their data team, everyone who's responsible for US data in the US, they would all have to be reviewed. They would all either have to have green cards or private citizenship or US citizenship in order
Oh, I
to
see. It's a way to circumvent CFIUS,
avoid.
which
No, they've been working
regulates.
on this in partnership with CFIUS. So this has been something they've been trying to do to make sure that they don't get shut down.
Ah, okay, interesting.
So all of their data, all of their US data would be hosted and reviewed by Oracle. Oracle would also review their algorithms to make sure that they were fine. And then, they have this thing about everyone in their data team would have to be either a US citizen or have a green card. There's a problem with that approach. There are many problems with this approach, but all of this is to say that as we have seen in Canada, number one, the definition of someone being a Canadian citizen or having a green card certainly does not prevent them from being influenced by a foreign entity.
Or taking money from one.
Or taking money from a foreign entity. Number two, even the engineers within a company don't know why an algorithm makes the decision that it makes. So the idea that Oracle could review and oversee its algorithm to avoid any kind of interference is laughable. Number three, ByteDance, the parent company of TikTok, has become one of the fourth highest lobbying contributor among internet companies in the United States. So they spent the fourth most amount of money on US lobbying last year. And what's fantastic about this, in a terrible way, is that they have employed that same strategy that they used in their kind of like senior leadership among their team to hire a wide range of US politicians, including Trent Lott and like a former Obama staffer and like all of these people to be their lobbyists,
the public face of
in DC. So that any government official who might be kind of, like nervous about taking money from a Chinese national, foreign national, or they're like, oh, this is just US politics as normal. Anyways, that part is not actually about Project Texas, but it is a corollary.
But it's part of this. It's part of the same system, and what you're really telling me here is that this is actually a common tactic, but it sounds like they're putting a lot of money and effort into it, which is to create an American face that will help hopefully convince US consumers that there's not
US lawmakers, especially.
Yeah, and lawmakers. We started with consumers and then we went to lawmakers, that there is not a company based in China subject to Chinese national security laws, which mean that they have to act as an arm of the government whenever the government wants, behind all this or running all this. And even if it's just to, put a PR spin on it, they're trying really hard to put that PR spin there.
Right. So so anyways, to get back to the point, Project Texas has been this kind of thing they've been working on to be like the workaround for having to shut down TikTok with the FIUS. Very problematic. Very problematic, in my opinion.
All right, I have one more question for you. A ton of people have spent a ton of time on TikTok. A lot of them have a lot of followers or whatever, like they've got a whole brand there. They've got their whole marketing team working on TikTok. I just heard it come up in another call where someone was wondering if they should have a, marketing campaign on TikTok. What if you've already spent all your time and effort? What am I supposed to do now? Should I just get rid of it? Is that all sunk cost unless I want to just be part of this machine? What would you recommend I do if I'm Pardon?
I have one word for you. YouTube. Snapchat.
This podcast was not
Twitter.
sponsored
Blue
by
Sky
YouTube
is a new
Snapchat,
app from the Twitter from the replacers of Twitter, or from the originators of Twitter, backed by Jack Dorsey. So yeah, I would say start doing what you can to move your audience to other platforms, because it's very likely that it's going to become a lot harder to continue on with TikTok in the near future.
All right. Well, I think that kind of circles back to the overarching message here, which is TikTok probably not long for this domestic US market world.
Right. Thanks, Evan.
Thank you.